welcome everyone to a new live stream episode of Anabaptist World. My name is Juan Moya. I'm the digital strategist of Anabaptist World, and I'm joined tonight with two special guests. Uh, Welcome, Erica Lee Simka. Did I get it right? And Micah Mayer. Welcome, guys. How are you? How are you all doing tonight?
Doing well. Thanks. Excited about this.
Yeah. Well,
Doing
thank you
wonderful. Thanks
for
for having
yeah, thank you for joining us. I know we're connected in different areas right now of the US. So excuse us if the connection might get a little laggy here and there, but hopefully it will go out fine. I have faith that everything will turn out fine. But anyways, yeah, tell us a little bit about yourselves, Micah and Erica. And also when you hear the phrase faith in action, what does it mean to each of you personally, as both of you are advocates for the LGBTQ plus communities?
us. Go
Micah?
for it, Erica.
Okay. Um, yeah, so I'm Erica Lee Simka, and I am based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I am a pastor and a parent and a partner and a perseverer and a peace builder and a lover of alliterations and a plant based nut. That's how I introduce myself often. Um, so I I'm kind of a joker, but it's like I've been gay a long time, you know. But I think as a pastor, um, especially in Mennonite Church USA, in the past, let's say about 10 years, there's been lots of things happening denominationally. And being a pastor in that, I'm currently actually working with a nonprofit ecumenically, so not with a Mennonite congregation as such, but yeah, I've definitely plugged in, not just showing up as myself, but advocating for others as well. I mean, I can't think of anything more pastoral or more Christ-like than to advocate for other people. Um, yeah, this question of faith and action. So my concentration in seminary was spiritual formation. And so, sometimes faith and action means sitting still. But there's also, a time and a season for everything under heaven. And I'm reminded of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel of blessed memory, who talked about praying with his feet. And there are these iconic pictures of him marching with Martin Luther King Jr. And so I take cues from that. We pray with our feet, we pray with our words, we pray with our showing up, we pray with our in every way. And so faith in action is, I think, a robust definition of prayer. And I was able to learn a lot about, different prayer practices and some, interesting Latin words in seminary. So it's, if you want to talk about a lifestyle, faith in action is a lifestyle.
Great. How about for you, Micah?
Well, Erica, you said you like alliterations, so you're going to love that I am Micah Meyer from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And you've been gay a long time, but I am gay all over the internet because I like to fashion myself as the Rick Steves of national parks. My expertise is as a travel writer who makes content and shares about specifically America's National Park Service sites, not just 63 capital N, capital P national parks like Yellowstone and the Grand Canyon, but all of our 433 National Park Service sites like national seashores, lake shores, preserves, reserves, etc. So everything that makes up our entire national park system. And as part of my job, I do a lot of storytelling. And every English teacher I've ever had has told me that it's far better to show than to tell. And I think faith in action for me means the same thing. Is how do I show someone I'm a Christian rather than just tell them I'm a Christian? I think it's really easy to say you're a Christian, especially when saying you're a Christian can win you favor with people or earn you points in our culture. But it's a lot harder to show that you're a Christian by living a Christ-like lifestyle. But as the song that I learned at church camp taught me, they will know that we are Christians by our love. So I think when we're living in a way that is loving and loving of not ourselves, but of others, that's how we are showing faith in action.
Great. Yeah. Um, can each of you share, Erica and Micah, a moment where your faith became something public and lived out, not just private?
I don't have to go first for every question, right, Micah? I mean, yeah. um, so there are just so many examples, but I graduated from seminary in 2014 and in May, and then in August I started working with a congregation in the heart of Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And my first Sunday, me and my co-pastor, who were coming on at the same time, our first Sunday was the day after Michael Brown was shot in the street. So my 3 years and 3 months for this 3-year residency term was in the heart of DC, 2014 to 2017, less than a mile from the White House. So hugely formative, especially with the timing of that very public murder and many other, if we recall, very high profile killings and murders of especially Black young men. And my co-pastor was also a Black young man. And so it was really those few years that moved me from faith as being a more private thing, kind of a little quiet in the land sort of vibe for myself, to be honest, to getting a little louder about it, just out of necessity, because that's what time it was. And I have that congregation and my co-pastor to thank for a lot of that shift. And frankly, I think the Holy Spirit strengthening me. I'm actually not very naturally outgoing. And so to go and show up at a protest or a march was like, but then, you learn how to do that. And so I would say those few years, excuse me, were really significant with that shift in my faith.
Mm-hmm.
So Erica and I have Washington, D.C. ties, and basically my first adult home that I picked after grad school, after college, was the Washington, D.C. area. I spent 9 months living out of a car and visited 46 U.S. states and Canadian provinces to try to determine where I wanted to live. And after that 9-month journey, I decided I wanted to live in the Washington, D.C. area because there were so many churches, not just with gay Christians, but with young adult gay Christians, people my age. And so I was so excited to be part of that community. And I got a job singing in America's National Cathedral with their professional choirs, which pays virtually nothing. And DC ain't cheap. So I had to figure out a creative way to survive. And that creative way was that I got a job living in America's oldest and only Jesuit boys boarding school, which is where our past 2 male Supreme Court justices went to school. Now, as a Catholic school, I'm sure you can imagine that as a gay person, there were a lot of risks. I could be fired for being gay. And about 3 months into my living there was when the state of Maryland voted on whether or not to allow marriage equality. And I took my t-shirt from the camp I'd worked at, the church camp, that said, "Jesus said," as the theme of the summer. And right below that, I put the sticker that said, "Vote for marriage equality." And that whole experience helped me write this article on the Huffington Post that kind of went like gay Christian viral, if that's a thing. Juan, I put it in our chat if you want to share it with the group, but it was called "Slapping Gay Christians in the Face." And I remember when I wrote this, before I submitted it, realizing that if I published this article, before this article, my employers at this Catholic school could Google my name and they had no proof that I was gay. But if I put up this article, I would now give them a reason to fire me. And I chose that it was more important to be visible for the people out there who needed a message of positivity, but also to be an example for my students, because I knew there were tons of gay students at this school, of what it means to live authentically as an example, as a follower of Christ. So that was a moment where I literally put my home on the line, because they could have kicked me out the next day.
Mhm. And I think that's what it takes, to put your faith on the line, especially in the current situations we're living here in the United States and in the world. It takes a lot of courage to do it wherever you're coming from. Loving thy neighbor has a very deep meaning uh, in in many societies, and especially here today in the United States. Um, Micah, I know you have a short film called Canyon Chorus, which tells a little bit about your journey, the interactions you had with nature, with people. Um, Before we watch this a little snippet, we're gonna watch 5 minutes of the short film, and we're gonna post the full film, the link in the comments below. But I'd love to ask, what role has storytelling played in your work, Micah, your advocacy, or your faith journey? Erica, you can also join in the conversation. Maybe Micah, you can start.
Erica, I got this. I think since the dawn of humankind, stories are how we have survived. Certainly, the Bible is a really great example of that. It's how stories are how we understand our world and understand our existence and share that with others. So, really, storytelling is one of the most powerful tools we have as humans. And I grew up as the son of an ELCA Lutheran pastor. And for those of you not familiar with ELCA, it stands for Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, which should make people laugh, because Lutherans are pretty much the opposite of evangelical. Many of us come from passive aggressive cultures where the idea of speaking about your faith with a stranger, let alone speaking with a stranger, is a terrifying concept. But in this case, I see my role as being someone who is ELCA and has that evangelical aspect, as reaching people not just in the church space, but trying to meet people where they are. And so I made this film called Canyon Chorus, specifically designed around the themes of outdoor adventure, as a way to reach people in that outdoor culture, that outdoor rec community. And we were fortunately successful in the sense that this film was chosen for the 2025 Banff World Tour, which means that it toured the globe to 500,000 viewers on all 7 continents in 47 countries over 600 screenings. So the clip that you're about to see, I think, is a great example of merging our interests as people of faith with our other interests that will reach people who might not opt in or feel welcome or safe coming into a space that's primarily designed around faith.
Mhm. How about you, Erica? What role has storytelling played in your advocacy faith journey in your work?
Yeah. Well, um, most of what Micah just said, applies to me in some ways, as far as the importance of story and faith. I'm reminded of a TED talk that went viral, like not just gay Christian viral, but viral. um, Chimamanda Adichie. Oh, I know I butchered her name, but I love reading her and listening to her. And she did this TED talk on the danger of a single story, or maybe it was the power of a single story. And so she talks about kind of the stories that we tell ourselves. So my background before seminary was behavioral health and psychology. And so this is speaking my language, like the ways we conceptualize the world, right? And so it's a really powerful TED talk. So, make a night of it. Watch Micah's film, watch her TED talk. But she talks about storytelling and just kind of invites people, I think, to question how we make meaning. And so whether we're showing up in a sort of, official social justice way, or we're showing up in a sort of official faith, like for me, Pastor Erica is here sort of way, we're constantly making sense and making story and making meaning of who we are, what it means for God to be with us in that moment, what it means to, excuse me, I have terrible allergies. My voice is, what it means to make sense of the world around us and within us. And so the stories of our faith get put into this sort of crock pot and become stories that we carry with us, while we're also making sense of the world with these other stories, such as I am loved, or I am hated, or whatever that is. And so I think the power of story and storytelling is so human and so divine, and it is so every moment. It's a really powerful opportunity.
Yeah, well, thank you both for sharing that. Without further ado, Micah, if you want to introduce a little bit of your film, as we're gonna play it right now.
I'll just say, if you are not familiar with the music of Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B, you should look them up after you watch this opening clip.
I just told you what you just played. That's a B natural. E natural.
No, that's an E flat. Oh!
No way. E flat. Oh my gosh. The timbre of this thing is not even close to a piano. E flat.
Yep. I met Larry when I walked in my first choir class, shook his hand and knew he was my professor that I was going to see 5 times a week for an hour and a half for the next 4 years.
So what I want to do is I want the intro of our documentary to be you saying, there's some oars in this house.
Who we were to each other was teacher and student.
Entice them
We do.
with a beginning that is culturally relevant. There's some oars in this house and interesting.
And then that evolved into friends.
Suddenly it's like the most epic drone shot ever. Oh my God, are those 2 hot guys about to die? And people will be like, what is this? What am I about to watch? So people will be hooked by that point.
They will. This is so exciting.
Through that friendship and through keeping in touch, I realized that he still had so much more to teach me.
My idea was that you sing the WAP chorus.
To me, a mentor is someone whose life you hope to emulate.
There's some O's in this house. There's some O's.
No. You have to imagine you're saying the word.
Whether it's their values or their job.
No.
But or.
Yes, sir. There's some O's in this house.
70% more are.
And for me, Larry is my mentor.
There's some oars in this house. There's some oars in this house.
That's really good, Larry. You nailed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys see the vision here? Well, my name is Larry Edwards, and I'm on my first Whitewater River rafting expedition.
It doesn't matter. I just want the planes in the background.
Now twirl, 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 twirl.
Oh my gosh, everybody's outgoing. Maybe we probably are bigger than life, all of us.
You're getting Olive Dean right now.
I know.
And if you get his butt like that, then we won't look good.
Well, I think we all know why we're here. Why we've been asked to go with Micah. To reconnect with the journeys that we've had and the people who have been in our lives, who have been important to us. And I know that he labels me as a mentor for him. I don't even totally understand it. All I did was love this guy and tell him it's all going to be okay.
I didn't have an unhappy childhood, but I certainly didn't have a totally free childhood where I just felt I could be whoever I wanted to be.
It was a year ago.
My dad was a campus pastor, and my dad won the award for being the best Lutheran campus pastor in America. When you're the youngest child of the award-winning best Lutheran campus pastor in America, you have a lot of pressure to be the perfect pastor's kid. I thought my only options were to grow up and die of AIDS, or grow up and be a drag queen, and that's what it meant to be gay.
Every morning I'd wake up and still be thinking gay thoughts, and I think, well, I guess I didn't pray hard enough. And if I just prayed harder, and if I was just more faithful and more obedient and more perfect, and at some point you just think, well, God gave up on me, or I'm so horrible and sinful that even God can't redeem what I am. So my dad, Larry, had esophageal cancer from diagnosis to death for about 3 years. My last conversation with him, I remember him saying, like, so what's next for you? Is it the University of Memphis? And I said, yeah, I got a full tuition scholarship. I didn't meet an openly gay adult until I went away from my hometown to college, and that first openly gay adult was Larry. He was my college choir director, so well respected in the community, living the life that everyone told me couldn't happen if I was gay. And it just was earth-shattering, and eventually allowed me to come out myself.
Micah, I could tell he was just scared to death. And I was like, what is going on? And he sat us down on the couch and just basically opened up. And I mean, I kind of tear up just thinking about it, because he just cried for like 4 hours, and you just feel his pain. And so we just listened to him.
Every time someone comes out openly as a gay person, we take a step forward. Every time. It's going to be scary, but it's going to move us forward. Every single time.
All right, Micah. Well, those were the first 5 minutes of the Canyon Chorus film. We invite you to watch it. We're gonna share it here in the comments in a little bit, so you can watch the full film. But yeah, Micah, what first led you to create this short film, and what do you hope people take from it?
Yeah, well, it's exciting because you can watch the whole 16-minute film online for free now on YouTube. So if you liked what you saw and were curious what adventures we get up to on the Green River through eastern Utah and Desolation Canyon, do check that out. I think Juan's going to put the link in the comments. But this isn't mentioned in the film, but the timing of meeting Larry is really what inspired me to tell this story, because I auditioned for my choir director, Larry, in February of 2005. And then my dad, Larry, died in April of 2005. And then I showed up to college in August of 2005 and met my choir director, Larry, as the first openly gay out adult I'd ever met. And so I've always really felt like God took one Larry from me and gave me another Larry that I really needed at that exact point in my life. And so that's a story I've been wanting to tell ever since, and just didn't have the right opportunity. And then I had a funder come to me after observing my work over a number of years and said that they really wanted to fund a short film for me, and asked me what story I wanted to tell. And I said, well, I've been waiting to tell this one in the right way for decades. And so I finally got to tell it through Canyon Chorus.
Mm-hmm. And Erica, as you watched I'm sure you've seen the full film. What resonated with you the most, especially as someone working at the intersection of faith and advocacy?
Well, by way of answering that, Micah, I have a question for you. A bonus, a plot twist. Just the name Desolation Canyon. How intentional was that, to that location, and that, I guess you didn't name the canyon, but
It was not at all intentional. It was, I got the funding to make the film, and I had 2 months to find a date that all 5 of the cast could get together for a trip, and to find a permit, a river rafting permit through a park that would give us a filming permit, which basically meant no National Park Service sites. So long story short, it was like the only river where we could get a filming permit for the dates that all of us were available. So it was written in the stars for whatever reason you're about to explain.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have seen the film a few times. Micah's been my friend for a while now, and I, was very excited whenever this film became available online. I it's constantly like every time I watch it, I kind of connect with something else. And at this moment, not a coincidence, I'm connecting with the name of the location, the Desolation Canyon, and how, I'm a preacher, right? I'm a pastor, I'm fluent in metaphor. I mean, I kind of always have been. But it's not just that Micah had gone through what I can only assume what I hear you describing as a form of desolation, with your father dying, with coming out, with all these things, right? But then you end up in Desolation Canyon with from what I can tell, a posse of gay men. I think that's the collective noun for queer men.
Actually, the anthropological term is gaggle.
A gaggle of queer men. I thank you. I'm still learning about your people and your culture. And I imagine, just because of the way things are, that each of you have had these experiences of desolation. And so then to move through intentionally Desolation Canyon together, the operative word being together, feels really powerful. It's like, I mean, I'm just going to go there. It's like resurrection in the Desolation Canyon by having you all there together. My most soul meaningful story in the Bible is when Elijah is on the run in his own moment of desolation, and the angel or a messenger or God or something, it's not quite clear, comes to him literally at night after Elijah said, I'm so done with all this. And like a Jewish mama says, here, have some bread, have some water. Why don't you have a snack, a little bit of a nap? Let's regroup in the morning, right? I think this is God's maternalness. And so I'm seeing, and I know we just saw a snippet, but also the film overall and in context, Micah, you and Larry and, your friends and everyone on this journey, both being Elijah and both being the messenger or the angel in the night for each other in different ways. And so, of course, I was raised Baptist. I'm Mennonite now. I'm going to go to a Bible story and a metaphor, and I don't have 3 alliterative points, but I think it's possible that this film is a sermon in the very best sense. And by that, I mean testimony of God's love and the community loving you at the same time.
Well, Erica, Juan and I actually met because I showed Canyon Chorus at a church in my neighborhood, at a Mennonite church. And as the sermon, I showed the film and then I spoke afterwards, which I do pretty much every Sunday now at a different church around America while I travel with the film. So I'm definitely going to steal some of what you just said for some of my upcoming sermons, or I'm going to come to Albuquerque and show the film and then kick back and relax and let you deliver the message instead of me having to.
Hey, it'll be like a revival. We'll each bring a word. I again, the operative word is together. It's not just my faith. It's not just my desolation. It's not just my advocacy. Hey, there's the 3 points. It's the togetherness, and not just togetherness because that, maybe feels good, but it's the togetherness that really keeps us moving and helps us not get too stuck. Literally or metaphorically. Looked like there may have been some mud y'all were dealing with in that rafting. Yeah.
Micah and Erica, how have your experiences as LGBTQ plus people shaped the way you understand belonging, faith, and community?
One of the really cool things that happened at our world premiere of Canyon Chorus was it was at an outdoor film festival in Colorado, and the MC of the night was like the broiest IPA-ist drinking, like just total stereotype of what a Colorado bro would be. And that's who we made this film for. I think it's easy to say, oh, that's a gay film, it doesn't relate to me. But actually, we really made the story universal. And there's a lot of themes that come out later in the film that relate to people who aren't queer. And this straight bro basically affirmed that, because he came up to me and he said there was a moment in the film where we talk about sort of breaking down the walls that we had built up to protect ourselves before we came out of the closet. And he started gushing about these walls that he'd put up in his life that had held him back from things. And he connected so deeply with this idea of hiding yourself to survive and hiding parts of yourself. And then he said, I just loved how once your walls came down, all of that joy came rushing out. And so I think a lot about, for people, whether it's because they're queer or other reasons, for people who have spent 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of their lives before they come out, building up this wall, they're holding in all that joy and they're not letting it out. So finally, once the wall does break and the dam releases, there's just so much joy. And that's what I really love, in a weird way, about the queer experience, is because of going through the desert and the pain that we felt. Once we get to a safer place, we don't want to feel that pain anymore. We're ready for joy.
And Micah, just I think that in today's in the current political system that we have, and I made the connection myself as a Latino immigrant to the Latino community, especially now, people who physically have to cross the desert, and many of them die towards trying to get a better life here, and yet they're not able to fully express themselves either, because they're in fear of being taken by ICE or et cetera, of racial profiling. So yeah, thanks for the film. I think, well, to those of us who are more open-minded and that like to connect stories, I think this is a good connection point, because we talk about, and I mentioned this before, loving your neighbor, but what does it truly mean, in different communities? So it's all interconnected. So yeah, it just made me think of that. And Erica, yeah, how have your experiences as LGBTQ plus people shaped the way you understand belonging, faith, and community?
Yeah. Well, this is a little bit of a complicated one because I'm like a professional Christian, right? I guess a pastor. And so to come out, when I came out and when I was struggling with coming out, there were maybe slightly different stakes because it was my work and socially and church and all these layers. Everyone has their own layers. But I think something, as the prophet says, there was a fire in my bones and I was weary of holding it in. And so I think there's a powerful shift for me and a lot of my friends who are also, let's say, rainbow LGBTQIA plus. There comes a point when, well, hopefully folks get to decide when to come out, right? Because sometimes people are outed. But in the case when people are deciding to come out, it is an opportunity to be prophetic. And so as a queer person, I feel more in touch with various prophetic traditions. And so by prophetic, I mean truth telling. That's what the prophets were about. I think that's what Jesus was about, right? And I think that's what contemporary Christians and, for all time, we are invited to be truth tellers. There's lots of different truths to tell. So some of the truths that I am committed to telling and continue to be committed to telling is that God loves me. God doesn't just tolerate me, that I belong. Ooh, are we there? Cut out for a second.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I think my signal. That I belong, that I choose to belong, right? And so I think it's for me being both a queer person and being a pastor and a person of faith comes down to really truth telling. And I think we're invited, especially, looking towards Easter soon, we are invited to join Pilate and ask, what is truth? Sometimes people like read that or deliver that like sarcastically. What is truth? I think he's asking sincerely. I think he's struggling, looking in Jesus's face and asking, what is truth? And so as a queer person, I've done a lot of that work as part of my coming out, right? And I think that's some of the gift of this community to the larger world and church is that we push people, we push other people for various reasons to ask, what is true about you? What is truthful about God, about the world?
Thank you. What responsibility, Micah, do faith communities have right now in creating safer and more welcoming spaces for all people?
Yeah, when I was in college, so as the film mentions, I grew up in America's largest Lutheran campus ministry. And so when I left Nebraska to go to school in Memphis, I went to their campus ministry mixer and I said, where's the Lutheran campus ministry? And Memphis being in the Bible Belt, a lot of evangelicals and Baptists, they said, what's a Lutheran? And I realized that in the city of over 1 million people, there were 3 Lutheran churches, and most people had never heard of Lutherans. So after sort of doing the tour of campus ministries, I ended up at the Methodist Wesley Foundation. And my senior year, we went on a trip to Denver, and we met with some people who do urban ministry. And one of the facilitators, I remember, asked us all a question, and he asked us what our faith values are. And we went around the circle and we said what our faith values were. And then he followed up and said, okay, how many of you have ever affirmed that publicly or made those values known publicly? And a lot of us kind of squirmed in our seats and hadn't really. And he said, is it really a faith value to you? Is it really a core belief if you're not willing to say so publicly? And I think, for queer people, we often think about Harvey Milk. He's an icon in our community that talked a lot about the power of coming out, that he's quoted as saying, once they realize that we are indeed their children, that we are indeed everywhere, every myth, every lie, every innuendo will be destroyed once and for all. And so I think for people of faith, especially non-queer people, it's important to come out with your faith values and to live them publicly. And I think especially right now, there are a lot of Christian values that of loving our neighbor and of accepting the stranger that are not culturally popular and that are radical, just as they were during Jesus's time. So I think it's really important for all of us to do what Harvey Milk said and come out as Christians, to come out as people of faith, to come out as people of the good news of love and for the values that represents.
Any thoughts, Erica, on this?
Oh dear, give me the mic and you're going to get a sermon. Another one. Yeah. I think in every time, in every era, the church has been invited to be a harbor. And all the more reason it's a sin when the church creates itself to be a typhoon and just really wreaks havoc. And so I think the question is about creating safe space, faith communities, um, and all that. I think recognizing that faith or religion or, is power. And so it's like a knife, right? You can use that knife to kill someone. You can also use that knife to prepare a fabulous meal that nurtures and sustains people, right? It's the power of it. And so I really feel, especially in this context, in this season, not just being churches and faith communities, not just being a harbor, like a kind of a passive safe space, but more like a lighthouse, a really active sort of reaching, this is safe space, and also doing the work to ensure that that congregation, that parish, is indeed a safe space. Not just saying, we're making a safe space, that because it requires work. And so I think we're invited to be harbors, but more so lighthouses, specifically in this time, by recognizing the power that we have, especially, in the Mennonite world, where so many, at least in the US, which is my context and I'm familiar with, the majority of us are white and white presenting. The majority of us are in various privileged categories. So recognizing that power paired with the relative power of being a Christian, even if it's a sort of subversive flavor of Christian, right? And so recognizing that power and really doing the work of creating safe space for LGBTQ people. But remember, within the LGBTQ community, we've got that intersectionality. We've got people with disabilities. We have people of every type of racial background and ethnic background. We've got people of every nationality and status. We've got, you know what I mean? And so it's not just being welcoming for LGBTQ people, but it's really being welcoming for all people, including LGBTQ people.
And to close, for people watching tonight, what is one concrete way they can put faith into action in their own lives? And I know there's a special event coming up this Saturday, the rallies coming up, so that could be an opportunity for some people.
Well, Juan or Erica, I'll let you explain the reality or the rally on Saturday. But Erica kept saying safe space, and so I felt like it definitely was a T or an alley-oop for me to mention the symbol that you see all over my body, which is called the outside safe space symbol, which is something that I made specifically to empower individuals to fight homophobia. I think racism and homophobia, there are these big concepts that sound like, what can I do as an individual to solve these things? But after visiting every National Park Service site in America and realizing that in every state and territory, when queer people go to our parks, to our rural places, to our outdoor rec spaces, they often feel like the culture causes them to need to hide these parts of themselves. So I made this symbol to empower individuals to put a patch on their backpack or a sticker on the water bottle or a beanie hat, and non-verbally share their faith values, their value of love. So if you are someone who likes outdoor rec, I'll give Juan the link here. You can pick up any of these symbols. Our pins and our stickers are now sold nationwide in REIs all around the country. And we used to be sold in 60 National Park Service gift shops, but in December, the federal government banned any products that were considered diverse. So you can no longer get them in national park gift shops, but you can get them direct from our Outside Safe Space page. So that's also on my website. If you go to watch Canyon Chorus and you want to have something that as an individual will empower you to communicate to folks that you are welcoming, pick up an Outside Safe Space symbol and then watch Canyon Chorus. And if you like the film and want to donate towards my next film, we're about 2/3 of the way through fundraising for that. And the film is called Misadventure because it's about me running across the state of Mississippi after my social media followers voted it the most homophobic state in America, and I ran across it in a unicorn dress.
You're such a character, Micah. That's just one of your very lovable attributes.
Hey,
Also,
that's faith in
shameless.
action.
What was that one?
That is an example of faith in action.
Yeah, yeah, quite literally. Well, I can't wait to see the next film. Um, oh gosh, and so get ready. You're about to sell out all of your gear to the basically all the lesbians. They're like, what? Outdoor gear that's a rainbow? It's like the trend for the lesbian world. That and Subarus. Brace yourself. I'm kind of excited to get a sticker myself. Anyway, yeah. So I gotta tell you, especially since some health things came up for me a few years ago, and I became a parent a few years ago as well. Those not being related. The way that I approach kind of advocacy and faith in action and social justice and public witness, right, has shifted. And I have found it tremendously helpful. I mean, I'll just make another plug for the work of, happens to be a woman of color. The book is called Social Justice for the Sensitive Soul. Social Justice for the Sensitive Soul by Dorcas Chang Tozan. May not have said her name quite right. But I have found great inspiration in her writing because this question of concrete ways to put faith in action, I feel like she talks about that. It's not a real like churchy religious book, but she brings in some of that, right? And she talks about quite truly, sincerely, like doing the research to prove that these movements, these injustices need every type of person and ability to contribute. And so as my kind of capacity and my needs and my responsibilities have shifted, the ways that I live out my own faith and the ways that I encourage others to live out their faith is really informed by truly a team effort, right? We know something about being the body of Christ. We cannot say to the foot, I have no need of you. We cannot say to the eye, what are you doing? I'm obviously way paraphrasing, but to use that metaphor in our Christian faith to bring in these ideas of the sensitive soul, and by that she kind of means the more quieter, the more introverted, a lot of Mennonites, a lot of Anabaptists, right? We are all invited to show up. What does it mean to show up? What does it mean to put our faith in action? For some of us, we are the feet running across Mississippi. We are the hands doing this and that. We are the voice doing this and that. Some of us are also other parts, and we're all contributing. And so I'm not as keen on saying this is what you should do this Saturday for the rally or not, or this is what you should do in this season, this time, this global and national here in the U.S. situation. But I think doing that discernment work and being open to what would be effective and sustainable for me in my context with my gifts, because that's what I think the church needs. That's what these justice movements need, is not people exhausting themselves, fitting into the mold that's frankly a male model. Most of the time, it's a, charismatic male model, which just doesn't describe so many of us. There is space for all of us to put our faith into action. And so I want us to be maybe a bit more expansive in what that could look like.
Yeah, well, thank you, Micah and Erica. I appreciated the time you took off today to be present, to share your stories. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. Micah, for sharing all your all your work, short film. I really hope that your next film comes out as well, and that we can talk about it later down the road. And Erica, thank you so much for your deep pastoral faith perspectives that you brought to the table. It was a good connection with the message of faith in action. So I really appreciate both of you, and thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Juan. And I'm just so thankful for you, Micah, as well, for the joy that you exude in your film, the witness that you bring as a queer person, as a person of faith, as an artist. I'm really thankful for you and the ways that you're showing up and peace building in your own contribution. So thank you, friend.
Well, thank you. You both got me emotional, and I needed to get a Kleenex, which is a good warning. If you're finishing Canyon Chorus, you might want to get a Kleenex as well. But if you don't laugh, I promise anybody who watches it, if you don't laugh at least once, I'll Venmo you $10. So email me if you don't laugh.
Canyon Chorus, sponsored by Kleenex. Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
All right. Thank you all so much. Have a good night.